Good night, everyone. It's 12 o'clock, Sunday, September 19th. And today, this ain't a podcast collab. This ain't a art of series episode. This is actually a behind the scenes episode. This is the first episode in Podcast 101. I have with me from the Cognac Room podcast, Mr. J. Christian. Please introduce yourself and let everybody know a little bit about you and your podcast.
All right. Yeah. My name is Jay Christian. I am the host of the Cognac Room podcast. I have two female co-hosts and actually coming now, another male co-host to replace the one that we lost. And we are just an uninhibited drink-infused podcast about adulting and male and female interactions. So we talk a lot about relationships and all the BS that goes on in relationships, how to better them and how to kind of just navigate, all of the craziness that goes on nowadays.
Okay.
And
now, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say we drop weekly episodes usually on Sundays, and we're on all the major platforms if anyone would care to listen.
Okay, and he does various other acts on IG Live and different things like that. And let me tell you, everybody knows that thing about me is I live in West Virginia, but I'm from Virginia. So me and you are from the Mid-Atlantic. Mid-Atlantic is a different type of swagger. It's a different type of style, when living in the Mid-Atlantic. And anyway, we'll talk about that later. But here's the thing. I brought you on because you have a special ability inside of this independent podcast industry. I met you before you met me. And that's usually how it happens. And it's better that way, because if you meet me before I meet you, it's going to turn out probably ugly because we might butt heads. But the one thing was a lot of people brought your name up. You come up in a lot of conversations. The presentation of how you all do your podcast, how you guys set up your advertisement for your podcasting, the certain pictures you put out there, the certain ways that you guys build intimacy for listeners. And that is why you're here tonight, because we're going to do a podcast 101 episode. This will be a jointly episode that is produced and published by both of us. It can come out at some time. Everybody knows with me, I do a random schedule. I'm actually on vacation right now, so doing something like this is the spur of the moment. So here goes my first question. And audience, this is one crazy thing with me. Everybody knows I'm a mad scientist when it comes to these podcasts because I storyboard my episodes. Everything has a sequence to it to a degree. This episode was going to be an original episode. Me and you were going to do 1 o'clock in a few weeks, but by chance we're here doing it now. So here's my first question for you, and this is to help podcasters. And when I say help podcasters, I mean everybody. I don't segregate. I don't single out any podcaster. I'm just saying we're saying it strictly for the merit of how to build an audience, maintain an audience, and entertain an audience. So, Jay, how did you all develop your show?
That's an interesting question, because I'll be honest with you, it's not an easy question to answer. But what I will say is the way we did it. I started off with just myself, and I was doing interviews. And I did an interview. My very first interview was with my co-host now, Petra.
Okay.
And because we know each other and we went to middle school together, like there was an automatic just like chemistry because we were friends since middle school. And so I feel like chemistry has to be like a number one thing if you're podcasting if you have other hosts, there needs to be some kind of chemistry. But I think the way that we got the show to where it is now was just trial and error. I did a lot of experimentation. I started off doing interviews, and then I did bonus episodes and tried some things. And then I started implementing music at the beginning of the show. And I just would look at the analytics and see what worked and just kind of stick with that.
Okay.
And I thought it was working.
And see, I appreciate an answer like that, because that's that gem we just put inside this episode, or you put inside this episode, because now you're letting the podcaster know that it's all right to have ups and downs and this and that inside these episodes. So I guess my stronger question now is this, because I tell everybody this: I am not a podcaster. I'm a journalist at heart. I pay homage to a TV show called 2020, which we both know. And anybody that listens to any of my podcasts know that I always swing something in there. So we'll get to that in a little bit. But here's the next question. This is the tough question. All right, so you got 5 or 6 episodes deep, and you said you're an analytic man, so you're just like me. Me and you walk the same road, and I love that because I look at numbers too. I don't look at numbers for the fact of how many listeners I got this week. I just look at it for how many listeners stayed, because I'm gonna get unique listeners every week, because I could do a show with 1 million people and just do podcast collage for the rest of my life, and I'll have numbers that go like this forever, just because I'm getting different listeners every week. But they're not gonna stay. They're gonna go
That's
back
right.
to their other. They're gonna go back to the other show. So when you got to like episode 5 or 6 or whenever you did, and you seen a number that you like, what made you stick with that formula?
Because I saw a number that I liked, and I was like, okay, so maybe this works. So let me do it again. And then I was like, they're still here. Let me do it again.
All right,
and I was just like, okay, yeah.
So let's go deeper then. So how did you capitalize on that? How did you get that number to keep rising? Because the thing that happens is we plateau, just like that.
Yeah.
So what did you do?
I didn't stay stagnant. Like I didn't just stick with that. Like I kept trying to add to it in some way and trying to like angle it in different ways to kind of keep the people who were there already, trying to keep their attention and also capture the attention of the others who are coming. So like, for example, I tried a lot of things. I tried using background music in my on my podcast, like while we were talking, and that spiked for like a week or two, and then it dropped off, and then it was like less people were listening. It was like it was even less than it was before. So I took the music away, and then I was like, well, maybe I'll do a featured artist. And so I started doing that, and I see that has been working, and it still works. So yeah, I came up with a formula that was like, I guess you would say, the foundation, and I'm constantly adding to it. I'm constantly adding different little elements all the time.
All right, and see that right there, podcasters take that in, because you don't have to stick to that normal ABC formula, because you're going to have consistency on a line, but you're going to have to add more than just consistency to keep going. And that's one thing that people, like when I hear people, these gurus giving instructions, charging $700 for these classes, I'm like, somebody can Google this and find out the right way to do this. Now, the crazy thing is, if you look in the current last 14 days at what you guys got going on Instagram, right? You can see y'all are inside studios, y'all doing this, y'all taking fancy pictures, y'all got a setup, y'all got everything going on. How did you guys get to that table? Because that is the most important thing. You don't have to give the true specifics to everything, but how did you get to the table?
Okay, yeah. So I'm gonna be honest with you, man. If I'm totally honest, I feel like my podcasting game went to the next level when I joined Clubhouse. I'll be honest with you.
Okay.
Yeah, when I got on Clubhouse, like I met a lot of people and I talked to a lot of people, and I was fortunate enough to build some relationships with some heavy hitters, quote unquote, and so I was fortunate enough to be able to do some interviews with some people who in a professional capacity had like some notoriety or whatever, right? And so because of that, people saw that, and then I'll be honest with you, man. Like, man, listen, let's just go start all over. Consistency, bro. Consistency. When it looked good, I kept going. When it looked bleak, I kept going. And so when people see that, and then they see that you have actually been able to do some things with some relevant people, it makes other people want to deal with you. And like a lot of the opportunities that I'm experiencing, that we're experiencing now, they came because number one, I work with everybody. You know what I'm saying? I had this theory, and my theory was this. My theory was, I'm gonna haunt you like a ghost. Everywhere you look, every corner you turn, you're gonna see the Cognac Room and Jay Christian. And because of the visibility that we created, and because of the relationships we built, and because of the consistency, a lot of doors just literally flung open. Like that's the best answer I can give you, bro.
Okay. And see, the thing is, and I always pay homage to Uncle Dolomite from Too Much Game podcast. You and him have the
Mhm.
same thing in this business, in the independent podcast business. And I always say that directly across so everybody can hear that. That's clearly what we are all in, the independent podcast
That's
business.
right.
Um, there's what we call a phantom respect for you guys. You two come up in conversation because what y'all do for the community, not based on likes or what you do, just the way y'all present yourselves and how you carry yourselves, um, that got y'all brought to me. And I'm nobody important, but I know somebody. So just because I know somebody, when someone gets brought to me and everything they speak of is respect, I go look at your body of work and I'll listen. I had a guy, and this is just the Thurston filler in here, so this episode goes a little longer. I had a guy that he had the business aspect talk really good, but I went over to his podcast and I listened to 2 episodes and I threw it away just because I had a long ride. Listen, just because I had a long ride from West Virginia to New Jersey, that ride was like 8 hours or something, 6 hours. I threw his podcast back in and I went in 7 episodes. And I found out this young man had some gems, and he's about to get on his 200 or second year anniversary on Sunday, if that tells anybody who it is. And this kid, he's rolling. He's consistent. He's putting out the content. So you all have your show that you come out with on Sunday. You have adult content, but you have adult content that's flavored, that's respectful at best. Um, how did you guys come to a point like and realize like, hey, we have a gem inside what we're doing and how we handle conversations?
Oh yeah. So what I wanted to do was I wanted it to be very real and very raw. And I wanted to be very transparent because see, here's the thing, man. Anybody can get behind a mic and make themselves look and sound like Superman, but not many people are willing to get on mic and show their vulnerabilities. And that's what I did. Like I literally told the embarrassing moments, make jokes about myself so that it freed me up to say things about other people in other situations without people getting on the defense because they're like, hell, if he said that about himself, he's gonna say something crazy about that or whatever. And so I feel like because we made it a point to just be as genuine as possible and as open and transparent as possible, it allowed us the ability to flirt with boundaries, so to speak.
Okay.
But then like there's a way to do it to where it's not so offensive because it's a very adult podcast. I mean, we talk, you've heard it.
Yeah.
we say some wild stuff.
But the thing is, it's
But
tasteful.
yeah.
It's tasteful. And the one thing you said there is, y'all built a level of intimacy with your audience. And that intimacy, that's the hardest thing in podcasting to build because I listen to people like it's one guy that's got like 10,000 followers on Instagram and stuff. But then, we can't speak about private quarters, what they say to me on the business end, but privately, you see a different side of this person. This person is not the same person outside of that. So building that level, building that level of intimacy and having an authenticity, like you said, that y'all do and keeping it very transparent with your conversation, that makes it more open to other things. Now, let me ask you this. You're out here podcasting. Y'all are moguls to a degree because you're getting into other genres inside of media with television and different stuff like that. What was the first side hustle you did inside of podcasting? What was your first side hustle?
My very first side hustle in podcasting was consulting. I consulted for a guy that wanted to get into podcasting, and I literally told him, hey man, I'll tell you what equipment to buy, you get the equipment, because he's not a techie dude at all. I'm not either, but I did all the footwork and he just didn't want to deal with that. So he was like, all right, I'll get the equipment, and if you'll come set everything up and then show me what I need to know, I'll pay you. And so I literally told him what to get. He bought everything. I went over to his place and set it up and showed him some things. And I told him I'll give you like 2 free like Zoom, or I use StreamYard, but StreamYard sessions if you need, if you run into a snag or whatever. And I literally charged him like $125 an hour.
But see, that's the right way to do it. Because like I tell people, when they come to me for obvious reasons for the monetization and different stuff like that. I'm like, I don't mind giving advice for free all day long, but when you want me
Mhm.
to get your pitch and follow up, I gotta charge you for that because that's me learning more about you and that's me hitting your numbers. And then that's when people get
Yeah.
froggy and they want to walk away. But you're a businessman, so I appreciate that because consulting is a hard thing to do for people because people want to hear a certain answer, but sometimes, and me, you can we're gonna talk about this in just a second. Um, one thing that bothered me about this community as a whole is that some people have to realize that some of their podcasts are a hobby. And it is very few podcasts that monetize or even turn a dime in their show. And that's the hardest thing to tell somebody. So when did y'all know that y'all was gonna turn a dime? When did you know? Like what day did you know you was gonna turn a dime?
I'll be honest with you, man. When I came into it, that was my like. I was just optimistic. I was like, I'm gonna make some money. I don't know how much, but I'm gonna make some money,
Money.
right? And so I did all kind of stuff, man. I reached out to a lot of people. I got a lot of no's. I knocked on a lot of doors that didn't open to me. And then I said, okay. I never let, I'll be honest with you, I never let a person refusing an interview or not, wanting to be supportive or not wanting to, you know, sponsor or anything like that. I never allowed any of those things to discourage me. I just kept going. I kept grinding and I kept improving. So it's like it's the image of the guy who wants to play a game of pickup basketball and nobody chooses him. He just can constantly practicing, getting better because in his mind he's like, one day you're gonna let me play and I'm gonna show my ass. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no
So
doubt in that. And see right there once again, where this episode podcast 101 101. I said 101. 101. It's kind of like that's the stuff that people need to hear. Like what we're doing right now, this is the issue in podcasting because people want to, like I said, with these $700 courses and everything, they paint this picture that everything is going to be rose gold and you're going to be here and there. Oh no, it doesn't work that way. Like I told somebody like I have the most amateurist podcast ever. I ain't got no intro. The only intro you hear is if the microphone hits my toe. It's straight just raw. It gets edited and stuff like that, but to a degree, I told people I was going to do my podcast that way. It was going to have rough edges to it because that's my style. And I hear some of these podcasts that got the nice production, got the extra Adobe on it. Somebody that spent I got to the point where I had to learn what my true production cost was. And I know you know your production costs. Like these are the things that I try to teach podcasters. Like learn what your production cost is. Like that's why I've been pushing using these iPhones and different things like that. Because if you can cut the cost down somewhere, you know, if your employer's paying for your cell phone, that's free internet that you're not paying for at home. Or if you got the iPad and you're struggling, or you're not struggling, or if you're, you know, something's going on in its financial issue, you can rent that bad boy from Rent a Center and get them episodes out and return it next week if you got to. Those type of things.
that's right.
Yeah, those type of things. I try to strive and give to fledgling podcasters. So now you're on the floor, you're on the docket. Tell podcasters some great advice that they need, please.
Okay. You don't have to spend a lot of money, like you just said. I gotta go there because that's my biggest lesson in podcasting because I used free editing software. I started off with a $29 USB mic
Uh-huh.
and then I did later on, yeah. And I did later on upgrade to like bigger equipment and better equipment. But if you go back and listen to my very first episode, it's very little difference. In some aspects, I think it may even be a little better. And that was just a laptop and a USB mic. So what I will say is that you don't have to spend a lot of money. You just have to do your research and learn a few tips and tricks that are very, very easy. That would be my number one thing. My number two thing would be find your voice. Like one of the things that I had to do was find my voice. I have a lot of podcasters that I listen to and that I appreciate, but I had to realize very early in the game that I can't do what they do. I have to do what I do, because when I do what I do and I do it authentically, or, you know, it, no. So, okay. There are a lot of people who have podcasts that talk about the same things that I talk about, but I'm the only me. Petra, my co-host, there's nobody else like her. Lyric, there's nobody else like her. So we embrace who we are as individuals and we bring that to the table, and that'll set you apart every time, every single time.
All right, now from that
Yeah.
part right there, I'm gonna cut you off real quick because me and you was
Mhm.
talk. We're gonna go into something a little deeper, and we'll do an episode on Thursday about this later. Um,
Mhm.
when you set yourself apart, because like I tell people, my podcast consultant portion of the business is totally different than just helping you get your podcast. I'm the guy that says I can take you to the Cognac Room and he'll buy X amount of whatever, to do your show. I mean, have your show on there, but you got to let him know what's going to be appealing for him to bring your, his commercials to your show, blah, 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 or this, or that. So you pointed out something. You do have to be different. It's not necessarily a competition, but you got to have enough to set you apart, be it the interaction, the camaraderie that you all have, or you fall flat. And that's one thing that everybody's scared to tell somebody this. Everybody's like, oh, be unique and do this. No, no, no. I'm not saying that at all. Be unique, do whatever you want. But there's a line that you got to show more than just an entertainment clause if you want to make money in this. You got to show me that when I advertise with you, that from what you say is going to connect to what I'm offering, what product I'm offering. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and that's the hardest thing. I think people don't understand as podcasters that just because you do a show about movie reviews doesn't mean that the projector company is going to want to do something with you. They're going to want to do something with an energetic company. I mean, podcast like yours that hits a demographic of 27 to 72. We ain't gonna use race or anything, but we'll just say doesn't matter about the socioeconomic levels, but you hit all them ranges, you hit all the demographics that everybody's looking for. And that's the one key thing that like in podcasting we just shy away from and don't talk about. We don't talk about what it takes to take you from a hobby to monetizing or to a profit margin that's higher than the cost of your episode.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So time back into you. You all got the podcast going, you got everything going, and I always do this rehash. What was the first mistake you made inside all this podcast and stuff?
The first mistake that I made inside of all this podcasting stuff would be, I'm trying to think, because I made quite a few. I'm trying to think of the first one. The very first mistake I think that I made. Yeah, the first major mistake that I made was if I'm honest, feeling like I had to have top-notch equipment. That was my biggest mistake, because I realized that I could have the ultimate studio and my content be shit and it wouldn't even matter.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, truthfully. And honestly, I realized too that content is definitely king. Like, I listen to a guy that literally records on his iPhone with no microphone or anything, and you can hear all the pops, all the background noise and stuff, but his content is so good that I'll fight through that to listen. And I'm actually a person that's like big on, it's got to sound good, but his content is so great that I'll just listen. I don't care. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think that was my first biggest mistake, was that. And my second biggest mistake was stepping outside of, it goes back to what I was saying before, stepping outside of my lane and trying to do what I've seen others do, thinking that that's going to work for me. And it's not like that.
No, not at all. Because I'll tell you a quick story. I had a little run-in actually last week. I have like 7 different series inside my show. And I do a lot of trying to help podcasters with podcast collides, behind the scenes, and the art of being whatever you are, like the art of being a duo or something like that. I do those things to help out. And then I took it upon myself to say, hey, I want people to learn about me. I'm going to just tell them about the love life. Well, I made a horrible, horrible mistake in that I had put some shows out in that series, right? And people expect that on a Saturday. So the numbers are going to be a certain way on Saturday. But my main show is on Thursday, and they're expecting that Q&A segment from Good Morning America that I do every week. They don't want to hear that crap about whatever. They don't want to hear a podcast squad. That's for the weekend. That's for whoever that crowd is that listens. So I put that bad boy out on Thursday, and they rejected that bad boy. They Dikembe Mutombo'd, they Moses Malone, and I got the little verbal thing set up so people can comment back to me. And they was like, we don't want this on Thursday. This is some Saturday shit. Don't do it again. Don't do it again. So I learned my hard lesson there. I was like you said about consistency, and I had to learn that when you get people accustomed to a certain way that you do things, you can't pop out in these different genres. Like I surprise people because like with what I do, I'm a little different because, like I said, I'm not a podcast. I'm a talk show host. So I did a true crime episode because something really bad happened in Norfolk, Virginia, and I knew the girl that did it. So I was like, man, I'm gonna jump on this. I did a true crime. I got good numbers on it, but I realized that them true crime people put the extra piano in the background and all the extraness. And I was like, nah, I'm not doing all that. So, like you said, I got to get back in my lane. And once in a while, when a movie comes out, I'll do a movie review or something like that. And I'll go from there. So let me ask you this, and this is on future things. What are your thoughts on putting a paywall? And when I say paywall, I'm talking about turning an episode into a premium episode. What are your thoughts on having premium episodes?
I am all for it. I didn't always look at it like that, but it was actually because I didn't feel like anybody would value what we were doing enough to say, I'll pay for that episode, until a listener actually said, hey, are you guys going to go on Patreon? Because I would subscribe. I'd pay $25 or whatever, you know what I'm saying, to get the content. And I was like, okay. So yeah, I'm definitely all for it, and I'm open to it. I don't want it to be a situation where the only way you can listen to our content is to pay, but I'd love to give exclusive, content for a price. Definitely.
Right. And I tell you, so like what I had to do with exclusive content, because you have to understand with me, man, I get into the tangles with certain podcasters and different things, not beef or nothing, but me and this group in England, we had a feud. So they was putting heat to wax, and I was putting heat to wax, and we came up. Like just like professional wrestling. We realized that this is better than the stuff that I do on Thursday or Saturday. So we'll get a mailing list of people that really like to listen, charge them a little bit, and send that out there, because we found that content drove a certain number, and a certain amount of people liked it, so they would pay to hear that kind of stuff because it was entertaining. So we did that. It was a feud on Instagram, whatever happened. And I learned from that the paywall is great if you can provide that continued premium content. And that's where the hard thing comes in with everybody. And that's one thing I'm saying to podcasters now that are just starting out. You got to offer that stuff for free for quite some time before you even think about getting that paywall or making them premium. Now,
that's right.
So certain podcasts like those movie review ones, I think that certain genres cannot monetize that way, because a movie review, if I'm going to see whatever that John Cena and what was that boy's name, the Just Friends movie or something,
Yeah, with the black guy, the Vacation Friends.
Yeah. What is his name?
I don't know his name.
I know
he's the same guy that was in.
He's the TSA security from.
Yeah, Get Out. Yeah, yeah.
That's what I call.
I don't remember his name though.
Yeah, but anyway, TSA and John Cena, they did that, and if if somebody try to charge me to hear the review of that, man, I'm just gonna listen to the next guy that has a review. But outside of that, like that's that. Now, one thing that we do in West Virginia in Commonplace, and this is really serious, we had this thing called a shameless plug. We do a shameless plug.
Mhm.
We plug everything that you got going on for the simple fact that listeners come in at different times. Because I got one dude that if the episode's 30 minutes long, he don't come in until 12 minutes and 40 seconds to start listening. So could you please, real quick, Jay, do a shameless plug and tell everybody where they can meet you, greet you, and whatever else you do on the internet that's in the confines of good
Absolutely.
interest.
Right, exactly. Okay, so you can find us at the Cognac Room podcast. So it's like the underscore cognac underscore room underscore podcast on Instagram. And what we do over there is we'll use clips and snippets from shows, audio as well as visual. I do this thing called a shot with Jay where I just kind of get in front of the camera and talk a little bit, and some of it's funny, some of it's just me venting or whatever. Um, we have a Facebook page, which is the Cognac Room Podcast. My Twitter, something happened to our Twitter situation, so we're not on Twitter right now, but we're on all the major platforms: Spotify, Apple, iHeart. Hell, we even on Audible. You know what I'm saying? Like we're
Yeah,
on a
everybody
lot
on
of
that.
different platforms. Yeah, a lot of different platforms. We are on Grind City TV every Thursday night at 9:00, following the Cool Out Corner and right before Bet the House podcast. We are on Stream TV on Diva Speaks Network. We have a YouTube channel, The Cognac Room. Yeah, and we're actually getting ready to be on another Roku channel next month. So we have a lot going on with that kind of stuff. What else? What else? What else? You know, we host some events, and we actually have we did like a thing called, what was it called? It was called Fashion on the Lake Week here.
Okay.
There was like yeah, so they were like models. We interviewed all the models. We interviewed the people who the company, that owners of the company rather, that put that stuff out. Like we've done a lot of stuff, you know. We've had a lot of opportunities. I'm just grateful, man. I don't really like, you know, I'd love to say that, you know, I have this formula that works all the time, and it's really not like that, man. Like I had an opportunity to I thought I had an opportunity to interview the real Rick Ross, Freeway Rick Ross,
Yeah.
and it was all set up and everything, and then it just didn't happen. So I could have tucked my head between my tails and just been done and been like, oh, woe is me, it's all bad. But I was like, we'll do it later, whenever, you know what I'm saying? I gotta keep, you know, that all that told me was maybe they don't think I'm big enough, so I gotta get bigger or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, yeah.
Okay. Because like I had something happen to me like that. I had because the thing everybody knows about me, I have different advertising methods, like the whole Spotify thing, putting that on Snapchat. Because I tell everybody, make sure you get your Snapchat game on point, because your episodes and different things when I'm in DC or different places, I put everybody's episode at the Capitals and different stuff like that. So make sure y'all got a snap.
Sweet.
Make sure y'all got a podcast Snapchat set up. Um, and you know, don't leave the location on, or you might end up like what happened with Pop Smoke. No offense or anything,
Right.
but
Right. No.
once in a blue moon, when you're in certain places at the mall, different things like that, or if you go up to Greensboro for whatever's going on up there, sometime drop your show somewhere. That's one key thing I tell everybody. And another thing I tell everybody about Tumblr. And we all know about LinkedIn and all that stuff because that's the businessman's Facebook. But Tumblr
Mhm.
is crazy because people that blog and they look at your room when they or look at your name, the cognac room, they're gonna take the cognac part, hashtag it, move it along. Your podcast will follow along with it because then people are gonna go to Remy Martin, they're gonna go to Hennessy, they're gonna go to Cavassier, they're gonna think of all these different things and it's gonna tie back to you. So I always tell everybody make sure your Tupperware game is on point just a little bit once a month.
Sweet.
Because
Okay.
of the
I need to
SEO.
get with that.
Yeah, because of your SEO that you can get from that. Now, to wrap this thing up, we spin over into the 2020 portion. 2020 was a show that I watched as a kid at 10 o'clock at night on a Friday night. 10:40. You would by that time, Diane Torrey had already done her interview. John Stossel did a little comedic thing, but Barbara Walters came on there. And Barbara Walters was tough. Barbara Walters taught me that you can ask people questions, right? And just because it's Barbara Walters, she can get a certain answer that Ted Koppel, Tavis Smiley, or whoever couldn't get. Sometimes I get compared to Tavis Smiley, but I'm gonna leave that for Jeremy on from Life Unplugged because he does remind me of Tavis Smiley for some reason. But anyway, and that ain't a jab, that or a dig. But anyway, so let's get into this hard hitting question. Ari, the pressures inside of podcasting. Do you ever feel that an episode doesn't deliver like the week before? Have you had that happen?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
what episode was that?
Okay, I will tell you. There was an episode, what was it? Bro Code. I did an episode called Bro Code with Drew from Drew versus the World. And it wasn't a bad episode at all. But for whatever reason, the episode right before that, I'm trying to remember the name of that one. I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of that
All
one.
good.
But no, the one right after that. The one right before that performed way better. You know, and so what I find sometimes is that I'm beginning to see that there's a core group of people who they like the group setting better than they like the one-on-one setting. For whatever reason. I'm kind of noticing that pattern. Yeah.
Okay. Now let's get deeper. All right. So the group setting, you found out that that's the way that you got to go on certain episodes. How much of your content have you had to turn to just be in the group episodes? Because, you know, like I had to learn it too. A lot of people like me to come out here and interview you right now because I'm going to pull some different questions that necessarily are not going to get asked to you. And no offense or anything when I say that, but it's just because of how I draw the questions out and how I flow with what I say, just like how you all do on your show. So that group setting, how much more emphasis have you had to put content wise into making sure y'all have the group every time for an episode?
A lot. I've had to put a lot of emphasis on that, a lot of focus on that, because so I am a serial recorder or producer, I guess you'd say. I'm always recording and I have like a lot of episodes in the can. And I still have episodes right now that I recorded in 2020 that I have not, or early 2021 that I have not brought out yet. And there are some episodes that I've recorded more recently that I've had to put out before, you know, like out of order, simply because of the demand that has been created. So I have to put a lot of emphasis on the group stuff. So what I find myself doing is I'll do the group stuff more than I do the individual stuff. And then I'll like just kind of mix the individuals, release them sporadically in between the group stuff. Because if I only did the individual stuff and like did all the individual stuff first or the one-on-one things first and then tried to get back to the group stuff, I think I'd lose a lot of listeners. And that's not anything to say anything against the guests. The guests are wonderful guests. Like they're amazing guests. But I don't know, like, it's almost like what you said, like when, you know, some people are used to that. But then there are those people too who love the interviews. And so they'll be like, well, we want the interview. So it's just weird. But yeah, I have to put a lot of emphasis on the group stuff because that's the bread and butter.
Okay. Now here comes the tough question. This is that Barbara Walters deal here. And this one always deals with success. Everybody has a definitive term for success. So as of today, what is your success and how are you going to continue to build on that success?
Okay. My success is the fact that I'm pursuing a goal that I set out to accomplish, and I'm accomplishing it. I don't grade or judge success based on money or popularity or anything like that. I base my success on satisfaction. If I'm happy, I'm satisfied. You know what I mean? Uh, so I would definitely say that it has been a success and it continues to be a success for the simple fact that I'm satisfied with where I am and with what I'm doing. And all the other stuff is just anything else that happens is just the bells and whistles. I'm no longer doing it as a hobby. I look at it as a business now. And I'm pursuing it in that way. But at the same time, it's like I'm not doing it for accolades or I'm not doing it for just for money. I'm doing it for the art of it. And is doing what I needed for what I need for it to do at this stage in the game. I'll tell you this, man. I had the fortune or the privilege of speaking with Joe Budden once. And what he told me, he said, man, he said, I want to tell you something. He said, in your first 2 to 3 years, he said, don't even think about making any money, man. He said, I had been podcasting for several years, 2 or 3 years before I ever made any money. He said, now there were occasional sponsorships or they weren't really sponsorships, like someone would pay them to say something or to talk about something and they would make a little money here and there. But he said for the first 3 years, he didn't really make any money. And he said that was him coming into podcasting already having a pretty big fan base. Didn't make any money for the first few years. So he's like, yeah, don't worry about that, man. Keep your head down, keep grinding, find your identity. And one of the other things he told me, which I felt was a jewel, he said, he said, everybody wants to be the man. You want to be world renowned and world known. He said, but you got to start where you live, man. If you're not the man in your city, how you expect to be the man anywhere else? And so that's what I've just been working on.
Okay. And I wholeheartedly agree with that because, like I tell everybody's always like, I see a lot of people coming up in 1 year anniversaries, and I tell people, man, I've been doing this since 2018, you know, and I've seen the ups and downs and the different things that happen, and nothing about being a veteran because there's somebody that new that could come along with an idea that they can spend and make money or whatever. I say just stick hard to the grind and do that. And then portion of the show we do this thing called a testament. Jay Christian said, here's yours. It's real simple. You are defining yourself inside podcasting. People see what you do. People talk about what you do. And that's something that is hard for some people to grasp because some people have ill will, we think, when they're talking about us, but a lot of people speak highly of you. I've never heard anything bad about you. So take that with you on the shoulder. And the next thing is this, the product that you all are providing is something that's entertaining, that's catchy. People gravitate to it and it has a message and a meaning. And it's very hard to do that when you have such an adult theme. So I want to thank you for that because the architect that you're building and that you keep building every week is showing other podcasters there's a way you can do this. You don't have to follow every single thing, but here is a true manuscript. And that's the problem that we have in podcasting. So many people want to make this manuscript that have no business making this manuscript. It's the ones like you that don't acknowledge the manuscript, that keep doing what you're doing, that provides it for these fledgling podcasters and anybody that's aspiring to do this. So take that one and put it on the other shoulder. So now you got your jacket like Michael Jackson with some shiny cuffs on it or at the hands. So going forward with that, know this. Your day is coming soon where this is going to be what you want it to be. That fruition that we always talk about, is coming. But here's something that died yesterday with you: potential. So you never have to worry about potential. That's one thing that everybody's always talking about. Oh, I haven't reached the proverbial glass ceiling. Nah. So if someone ever says anything about potential or something, just say, man, I'm past that. That's in my closet. That's the ponytail behind me. And that's the way we like things to be. That's how things should always be when you get to a certain level. And the respect you get, the respect you get. And people that are respectable and that get respected, it's a reason. It's the body of your work. It's the integrity inside of what you all do. So many people can put out multiple podcasts, do all this heavy energy and all this extraness, but it's not respected. And if it's not respected, you can put out 1,000,000 miles of material and never go anywhere. you can assume, and when we assume, we know what that makes us. But you don't have to do that. You and your podcast following, you and your group and your entity at all, y'all don't have to worry about that because y'all got that. So I want to thank you once again for coming on West Virginia and Commonplace, because this is a joint venture between the Cognac Room Podcast 101. We talked about different aspects of it. We'll pick it up on Thursday and we'll make it bigger. And to the audience, this is one thing that I want to say as a lasting thing. If you need to talk to someone, and this is the audience and podcasters, Mr. Christian is easy to find. You can reach him, send him something in his DM. Anybody that's a architect in this business of independent podcasting, you can reach out to, you can talk to them, and they will be humble enough to give you some of the road. They will give you some of the rope, but they're not going to give you every single thing to get your podcast down the road. It don't work like that. So either way, I wanted to thank you for coming on. And any last things you want to say?
No, man. Hey, I'm honored that you would, have me on. I listen to your show. I see what you're doing. You're doing big things, So and I appreciate the love that you show to the podcast community. Like a lot of people in your position would feel like, oh yeah, I don't deal with these little with these little guys. I don't deal with the little guys. But no, man, you are definitely I think you're definitely what the community needs, and I respect you greatly and I appreciate you, man.
All right, always. And like I said, we're going to do this later. And like I tell everybody, with me being on break right now, I'm so sporadic. This episode might get Tuesday, Wednesday. It might you might take an episode off my list, because and like I tell everybody, with the Canva game, I can have an ad up and running by tomorrow morning when I wake up again. So audience, be on alert. This episode could come out at any time. And once again, this is a joint.
Sweet.
This is a joint deal. So he's going to have the recording. I'm going to have the recording. We'll do something with it. So once again, West Virginia and Commonplace, West Virginia and Commonplace signing off. The Cognac Room, please give us your outro.
I don't really have an outro. I don't know, man. Well, like I'm so, listen, I'm so unorthodox and silly sometimes, man. It's just what I will say is, at the end of the day, just believe in yourself and keep going. That's it. Believe in yourself and keep going. That's all we can do.
Okay, and I like that. Now I'm gonna tell y'all, audience, before we get off here, because it's one thing I'm gonna add in, and this is just funny because we're in the same age demographic. The next time I have him on, I'm gonna have him do like either Walt Baby Love or Donnie Simpson on the radio. If you don't know what that is, I will tell y'all guys later, or you might see it on Instagram somewhere. All right, guys, we're out of here.